But at the moment, we're still adapting to those changes and working out how to organise the workflow around the weekend.
The 2022 race schedule is a lot more compressed than previous seasons. This has been done to help the crews get through the long 23 race season. Now we have curfews on a Wednesday, which has never happened before, and the curfew means you cannot be at the track any longer than 11 to 12 hours depending on the timetable.
Thursday we used to be able to start whenever we wanted, but now there is a start and an end time to that. That gives you an 11-hour day, which for a day at the circuit, that's actually quite a short day. And also on a Thursday, you're not allowed to fire up the power unit until 4 p.m. in Europe. And again, you're going to be finishing at 8 o'clock on a normal Thursday. So that preparation time, the time to build the cars, has been much constrained. What does that mean for the teams? Well, it's a lot harder to bring bits in late. You've really got to know what you're going to be building into those cars and have them there from Wednesday, because that's the only way that you can get the cars ready for Thursday night and ready to run for Friday. That same theme continues into the Friday and the Saturday. On the Friday night, we've got, again, less time to work on the cars, so the mechanics have only got 3 hours after running, and then the covers need to be on. The engineers have an extra couple of hours. Now, the reason that was done in the regulations was to avoid the temptation to go and set up an office in a hotel room where you'd then be talking about the run plan or any of the changes you might make. But again, that's a lot less than we've had before. If the car's not done on Friday night, well, you're going to be working on it on Saturday morning, and worst case, it wouldn't be ready for that FP3 session. And then after qualifying, another shrinking of the time available, where the mechanics, by the time they get the cars back from the FIA, will only have a matter of half an hour or so before the covers are on. So quite a challenge. It does give us more free time in the weekend. You're not working such long hours. Everyone can get a bit more sleep. But at the moment, we're still adapting to those changes and working out how to organise the workflow around the weekend.
It's compressed the work into a smaller period, and start of the year is quite tricky, mainly because you're very short on parts. I can see it being a problem, and I think maybe we'll need to review as a championship over the next 2 or 3 races to see if we've done the right thing.
And then we've also got to make sure there's time to do things like pit stop practice, because that's one of the first things that can drop off when the car's constantly in pieces and being worked on. You obviously need a complete car to be able to do that. So there's a lot of tuning to be done, but this is really quite a normal loop for us. With any process, we're looking at how we can make it slicker, faster, better optimized, more efficient, and we'll be doing that with the whole race weekend schedule as much as we do with the other areas.
For 2022, we have to dedicate 2 practice ones, one for each driver, to rookies, which I believe is a great idea, and I think it's going to be extended in future years to give these guys opportunity to drive the current race cars against genuine opposition rather than just a young driver test where teams are generally testing car parts.
The reason we had 3 sprint races in 2021 was simply test events to look at whether these work and should they be expanded in the sport of the future. The big challenge for the teams and the drivers with the sprint format, though, is you've only got 1 hour to get the car sorted for the qualifying session, for the sprint race and for the main race on Sunday. And that's difficult. Now, if you consider the cars and the tyres that we had last year, we understood them pretty well. We could do work in the simulator, we could come up with a setup, and we'd be pretty confident we could put it on track and it would work. Now, we're on very much a learning curve with the new cars and the tyres, so that Imola race is going to be difficult. If you hit the ground running, you're probably in for a good weekend. If you put the car on track and it's a difficult one to deal with, it might be quite painful. So there's a lot of focus there on making sure you can get that start set up in the right place. So for 2022, that experiment continues. There are still 3 events, so we have Imola, Austria, and Interlagos in Brazil again, but there are some enhancements. So pole position now is awarded for the fastest driver in qualifying, not in the sprint race itself. So it doesn't matter what happens on Saturday, if you were the fastest driver around the lap, you get that pole position and that will remain in the record books. And the other enhancement was that the points have been broadened. It was first to third in last year's format. Now there are points from first to eighth. So the winner will get 8 points and the 8th place finisher gets 1 point. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out again. The results of those races will get reviewed, how exciting it is for the fans, and no doubt there might be some more changes going forward.
The sprint races in 2021, it was quite unique for the guys because there seemed to be an awful lot of standing around because the curfews came in quite early. The car spec was generally set, and this year with the extra restrictions on curfews and time on the cars, it's going to be quite interesting to make sure that you arrive prepared with a good race car, because on day one it counts because you have to qualify.
This year is very, very simple. You can start the race on whatever tyre you want. What you probably need to do is just remind people what that rule was last year, and that was a bit more complicated. Cars in the top 10 had to start the race on the tyre that they did their qualifying time in Q2, that second qualifying session. If you decided that you didn't want to start the race on the soft, you wanted to be on a medium, that medium had to put you into the top 10. And what that meant was there was a bit of a mismatch between the cars at the back of the top 10 and then the cars from 11th backwards were arguably at a slight advantage. Certainly we had some races where starting 11th on a medium would have definitely been a better position than starting 10th on a used soft tyre. So that's been addressed, but as I said, the rule now is really very simple. And what will that mean for the grid? Well, you don't know what tyres people are going to start on until the blankets are off. So there's a bit more of an unknown. We can't do quite the same level of planning when we're looking at the strategy. It'll also mean you get a bit more variety. So you might have someone who's qualifying 3rd or 4th on the grid who decides that they're not going to get into first position off the start, but that their odds are better served if they actually run a harder tyre and they go for longer, and they're looking at a different strategy. So I think over time we will see a bit more variation, and it also does create a slightly fairer picture for all the teams up and down the grid.
On a Friday morning, we have to present both cars to the FIA and FOM for a show and tell.
It's a transparent forum where the fans can actually see what the teams are going to be racing.
We show them how we're going to start for practice 1, and then after qualifying we have to present the cars again to show what differences, how the cars evolved during the 2 days and what development parts have arrived on the car.
A lot of the fans of the sport are actually really interested in that engineering element, to know where's the performance coming from, what are the big developments, is it going to change a team's fortune within a given weekend.
So I think that'll be quite interesting because it should be open to all the fans and the broadcasters, so at least we can all see what was changed on different teams.